Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are well. Today is the 13th of February, and it is, what is today? Today is Friday. Hopefully, all you guys are having a wonderful weekend so far. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. And if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month, and all funds go to me. Helps me pay for the things I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, clothing, and all those kinds of things. Outside of that, hopefully all you guys are doing wonderful. And let's get into today's episode. Moving on into our headlines and history, as we do, the headline we have for today is Johnson honors ideal of Lincoln. This is from February 13th of 1966. On Abraham Lincoln's birthday, the day before, President Lyndon B. Johnson laid a wreath at the slain president's memorial and said the nation had made unprecedented progress in fulfilling the ideal of which Abraham Lincoln stood. The Times reported he said that in the 6 months since he had signed the Voting Rights Act, some 300,000 Black people had been added to the voter rolls in 5 southern states. This, of course, is very interesting, and it's something I was just learning about in a class, which is interesting to read this headline, that is for sure. Of course, a lot of Black voters very slowly gained their right to vote, and even when, they had the right to vote, a lot of Black voters weren't able to vote because of things like the poll tax and so many more other issues, right? This is definitely talking about, the positives that did come out of the portion of the Black population that was able to vote, which was a big deal, but of course not everyone was able to vote. And it's, things we're seeing issues with today with the voter suppression in the current United States, with the, push to remove mail-in ballots from this administration, the push for voter ID by this administration, something we'll talk about, I think, next. And, it's really a big deal. And it's something that really should be discussed because people didn't get to vote for such a long time. Racism is still a big problem. Can't forget that in this country. It was a problem for such a long time, and it's a problem now. It's something that needs to be remembered. I don't think anyone's forgetting that, though. Outside of that, hopefully all you guys are doing wonderful, though. And let's move into our news from today. Moving on into the Trump administration segment, as we do, the topic we have in our Trump administration segment today, we just have one topic here for today, is Trump says voter ID will come whether Congress approves it or not. Trump has taken to Truth Social in another rant, this time on voter ID. He wrote, "We cannot let the Democrats get away with no voter ID any longer. These are horrible, disingenuous cheaters. They have all sorts of reasons why it shouldn't be passed, and then boldly laugh in the back rooms after their ridiculous presentations. If it weren't such a serious matter, it would be considered a total joke. No voter ID is even crazier and more ridiculous than men playing in women's sports, open borders, or transgender for everyone. Republicans must put this at the top of every speech. It is a can't miss for the re-election in the midterms and beyond. Even Democratic voters agree, 85%, that there should be voter ID. It is only the political leaders, crooked losers like Schumer and Jeffries, that have no shame and explain why it's racist and every other thing that they can think of. This is another issue that must be fought and fought now. If we can't get it through Congress, there are legal reasons why this scam is not permitted. I will be presenting them shortly in the form of an executive order. I hope the Supreme Court realizes why as they painstakingly review this very simple topic of countries saving tariffs, those same tariffs that have been used for many years by other countries against the United States to drain its treasury or security for many years, and all sorts of other things that are making the country rich, powerful, and safe again. But these corrupt and deranged Democrats, if they ever gain power, will only be adding 2 states to our roster of 50 with all the baggage there too, but will also pack the court with a total of 21 Supreme Court justices, their dream, which they will submit easily and rapidly as they immediately move to terminate the filibuster, probably in their first week or sooner. Our country will never be the same if we allow these demented and evil people to knowingly and happily destroy it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Save America, President Donald J. Trump." This is a lot, and of course, a bunch of it is bullshit, like it is every single time, right? But there is no reason why you should need an ID to vote. You legally do not need an ID card in the United States. It's not something you are required to have. And if you are a citizen, you are able to vote. If you're a citizen, you're not able to vote. Like, people who aren't citizens in this country already cannot vote. It's just an inconvenience for people, and it prevents people without an ID from voting, which is around 2% of Americans who are eligible to vote, right? There's no reason why we should be restricting people without an ID from voting at all. Voter fraud is not a big of an issue as people think it is. It's really not. Trump can ham about this all he wants. He can say, oh, voter fraud is this, voter fraud is that. But if you really do look at the numbers, voter fraud is not a problem in the United States. It's not. It's not, and Fox News, Trump, and all of these people can say it as much as they want, but it is a minuscule problem compared to all of the other issues that we have in this country, right? There is no reason why you should have to have your ID to vote. And honestly, if I was MAGA, I would be upset about this because it's another restriction and another regulation put on you. There's no reason at all why people should have to have an ID to vote at all. It is just an attack on your rights. It is, an inconvenience to you, and it's being done to negatively impact those who do not have access to those resources, which isn't okay. It's really not. Everyone should have the right to vote in this country. If they are a citizen, you should not have to have an ID to vote. It is dumb, and that's to say the least. Anyways, moving on to our segment about ICE, a Trump judge has ruled that Trump violated the constitutional rights at an ICE facility. A Trump-appointed federal judge has ruled that ICE and the Department of Homeland Security have violated non-citizen detainees' constitutional rights. U.S. District Judge Nancy Brassel ruled that practices and policies at the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building didn't allow detainees to access legal counsel, violating the law. Brassel wrote that the government put in place obstacles that marked an unconstitutional infringement on the rights of non-citizens. This is 100% true, and not giving people access to legal counsel is illegal. I mean, there's nothing else out of that, right? Like it or not, the Constitution applies to everyone in the United States, and I swear to God, if I see somebody in my comment section saying that it doesn't, I don't even know what I'm going to feel like, but it's not going to be great. Like, it is so dumb to me that people do not recognize the fact that the Constitution applies to everyone. Everyone has access and is protected by the Constitution, whether they are a citizen or not. You can argue with me on that as much as you want, but at the end of the day, that's what the Constitution says itself. So you're the one wrong if you're against that, right? It is absolutely stupid that anyone thinks that people who are in this country, illegal or legally, are void from the Constitution. Like, they are protected by the Constitution just as much as a citizen is. It does not matter who you are, doesn't matter where you came from. You're in the country, the Constitution protects you. And that's what we should all be grateful for, right? Anyways, moving on to our next topic, the ICE director has said that agents lied under oath. 2 ICE agents have been placed on leave for making untruthful statements about what happened during their time in Minneapolis when they shot a Venezuelan man in the leg. ICE Director Todd Lyons said the agents could be fired and charged criminally for lying under oath. This comes after a federal prosecutor sought to dismiss the charges against these 2 men a handful of days ago, whose names are Julio Cesar Souza Celis and Alfredo Alejandro Alihorna. These agents should be prosecuted, right? Especially for shooting a man. No duh. Federal agents shouldn't be shooting a man in the first place, but also, they should be prosecuted in general for being ICE agents and for being, terrorists. I mean, that's what we've seen on a daily basis at this point. They are going into communities, they are committing terror, they are the definition of terrorists, and they're being propped up by our own government, which is a problem in itself. Hopefully we see something here. Hopefully, right? Anyone lying under oath should be prosecuted and sent to jail. But we haven't really seen that yet under this administration, right? Hopefully we can see Pam Bondi prosecuted for lying under oath, because she just did that in her congressional hearing a couple of days ago. But I digress. We'll see what happens. There is not a good record for prosecutions under this administration, for really anything, right? But as always, we'll have to wait and see. And other news, moving on to our final ICE topic for tonight. ICE is spending $38 billion on warehouses for concentration camps. ICE is expecting to spend $38.3 billion to acquire and retrofit these new warehouses across the country to use as concentration camps. They are looking at 16 new buildings to serve as processing centers holding 1,000 to 1,500 people each, along with another 8 large-scale centers to hold 7,000 to 10,000 people at a time. In recent weeks, ICE has spent $690 million on 8 facilities in Maryland, Arizona, Georgia, Texas, and Pennsylvania, along with Michigan. I believe these are the facilities that we've been talking about for a handful of months now. And I'm a tad unsure about that, but from what I have gathered, these are those same facilities, and they aren't new ones, hopefully, right? Either way, for an agency that is supposed to be deporting people, 8 facilities to hold around, 70,000 people, give or take, seems like a little too much. I believe the active holding capacity for ICE right now is 125,000, or at least that's what they expect to be at by the end of this year. That seems pretty big. Seems quite large for an agency that is supposed to be deporting people, not holding people. I mean, not that I'm advocating for deporting people. We all know my opinions on that. I am highly against ICE. I think they are a horrific organization. And, the immigration system in this country is horrible. It's why a majority of these people do not have citizenship, right? But I would rather people be deported than being held in these facilities, and I think that's an opinion shared by most. Nobody wants anyone to be held in these ICE facilities. They are inhumane, right? And they need to be shut down by all means. But just for expanding the holding capacity for these facilities, for an agency that is meant to be deporting people, that is meant to be removing people, right? As dumb and stupid as that is, it really does not make sense for them to expand. Why would they be expanding if their goal is to get rid of? Just seems like they're trying to keep people here. Anyways, moving on into our segment about the Epstein files. This is our final segment for tonight. A bank executive has stepped down over their relations with Jeffrey Epstein. Goldman Sachs top lawyer Kathy Rumler has announced her resignation after emails revealed that she had a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, whom she called Uncle Jeffrey. Rumler told the Financial Times, "I made the determination that the media attention on me relating to my prior work as a defense attorney was becoming a distraction." She is expected to leave her position by the end of June. The fallout is continuing, and rightfully so. Anyone calling Epstein Uncle Jeffrey should not have a job, right? And she also provided Epstein with advice on multiple occasions when it came to his case. I have a feeling that she, at the very least, knew a little bit about what was going on there, right? Good to see that the fallout is continuing. I hope if anything comes out of this, and if she did anything, she is prosecuted. But as always, we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to our next topic, a sultan has resigned over Epstein. Sultan Ahmed bin Salim has resigned from the head position of DP World over his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. DP World announced the resignation effective as immediately and has named Essa Kazim as the chairman of the company going forward. The sultan has been accused of being one of the 6 powerful men who were associated with Epstein in his operations. We've seen a lot of people leave their positions and jobs so far, but not a lot of charges, right? In fact, we've only seen one charge, which we'll talk about next. But, we need to see these people charged and brought to justice, right? Especially if they're believed to be a co-conspirator. This man is to be believed to be one of those 6 people who were connected with Jeffrey Epstein throughout this entire ordeal. And he's got to go if that was the case. Those are one of the very, very people who should be, outside of that, though, I've advocated for, getting rid of these people time and time again, and I'm going to keep doing that because they shouldn't be allowed to live. Touching a child is a disgusting act. And I do not think these people even deserve to sit in a prison for the rest of their life, right? We've seen it with Ghislaine Maxwell. She has essentially been allowed to roam freely in this minimum security prison, right? And that's not something we should see for the rest of these people. We need to make an example out of these people just like we need to make an example out of the people from ICE. The reason we're having this issue now is because we didn't deal with it correctly during the Nuremberg trials. And it's about time we do with it correctly now before it causes even more problems in the future. Anyways, moving on into our final topic for tonight, the former Prime Minister of Norway is being charged for Epstein links. Norway's former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland has been charged with aggravated corruption for his links to Jeffrey Epstein, according to his representatives. Eldon law firm confirmed that he is being charged with corruption, but he denies all of these charges. According to Norway's Økokrim, the investigative agency for economic and environmental crime, it will now question Jagland as part of the ongoing investigation for the Jeffrey Epstein files. This, of course, is big news. It's the first world leader that is being charged for their connection to Jeffrey Epstein and the files, which is great. Good on Norway, truly. And if he did do horrendous things, I hope he is prosecuted. None of these pedophiles should be allowed to live at all. All of them should be executed on live TV, for that matter. And hopefully we can, lock in and get some prosecutions done over in the United States. But, at the rate it's going, I don't think that's going to be the case, right? We're very clearly hell-bent on protecting these people rather than prosecuting these people, which is a problem. Outside of that, though, thank you everyone for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's definitely been a very interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. If you're new here, though, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. And if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month. All funds go to me. Helps me pay for the things in my life, like my groceries, clothing, and all of that. I want to thank our paid subscribers on Substack, Sean Zone and Nan. Thank you all for being a subscriber. It means the world to me. You guys help me a shit ton. And if you want to help me a shit ton, drop a subscribe. Be a paid subscriber on Substack. That would be great. Outside of that, thank you all so much for watching today's episode. And we'll see you all in tomorrow's.